In this episode, we're going to answer the question, how do I ensure that my data that should be represented as a number is a number in PowerShell? It's important for us to understand what type of objects that we are working with in the PowerShell world. Let's go ahead and get a collection of objects to work with. So what I'm going to do is I am going to run this command that's going to get me all of the Win32 logical disk objects from my local computer. Here we can see we've received 3 objects back. Now I'm going to filter them down. We're just going to work with the C drive. So I'm going to set a filter where the device ID is equal to the C drive. Now I'm going to select out a couple of properties I'm interested in. I'm going to select out the device ID and size. The size represents the total size of the hard drive in bytes. And let's face it, we're in a gigabyte, terabyte world here. That big number that we're seeing, that big number down there might not go over too well. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert it to gigabytes, but that's also going to produce a decimal value. To accomplish this, I'm going to do a calculated property called sizeGB. And then the expression will take the current object in the PowerShell pipeline's size property and then divide it by 1 GB or 1 gigabyte. 1 GB is PowerShell's representation of 1 gigabyte. So in other words, we're going to take this number and divide it by 1 gigabyte. Here we go. And there's our answer, 928.91. But what if I wanted to get rid of that decimal value? Well, one of the ways we do that is with a method called ToString. Here you can see I'm taking the current object in the PowerShell pipeline divided by 1 gigabyte, but I've got it inside of parentheses. That says do this first. And then I'm going to call the ToString method and then just a symbol, pound symbol. That says no decimal points. Now a little pro tip here, if you do pound dot pound pound, that says make it a number with 2 decimal points and it'll do a roundup. Let's go ahead and run this code. And as you can see, we got rid of the decimal points. Now, if you're interested, this is a reference to the ToString method that we utilize to do this conversion. But this is also where we are going to have a problem. Let's examine what type of data we're working with inside of this object. Here I'm going to run the command again. I'm going to pipe it to get member. And here is the problem. Our size in gigabytes is now a string. Strings are characters, not numbers. And even though this may seem to be a very minuscule problem, it can actually turn into a huge problem when you try to reuse this code later on. So let's see how we're going to fix this. We're going to take a look at a help file called about type operators, and I'm going to open it up in show window. Here's the help file, and this is what we're interested in. It's called the as operator. Now this converts the input to the specified .NET type. For those of you not familiar with the .NET framework, it's simply a massive collection of information. Somebody actually had to explain to this computer what a number is. I don't want to be the one who writes that program code, so it's all done through the .NET framework. So we're going to be using the as operator to convert from our string to a number. In this case, when we use the as operator, we're going to convert it to an object that is of type int32. In other words, a 32-bit integer. Since we're converting this number to a whole number, by definition, that is an integer. Now, if you're curious and you want to know, well, what data type would it be if I wanted to preserve some of the decimal points, that would actually be called data type double. Now, let's take a look at how this functionality works. Since we're converting this to a number without any decimal points, by definition, an integer is a number without decimal points. I'm going to run just this part of the code just so we can see the output, and we can see there's our number, 929. We're going to do it again, but we're going to pipe it to get member, and using the as operator, we can see that we successfully converted that string of numbers, the string of characters of, was it 9 to 8, whatever it was, and we converted it into an actual number. Moving forward, that property of that object will be data type 32-bit integer, which means it is a number, which means calculations are going to work correctly. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time when I answer another question for one of my PowerShell classes.